right, guys, Brandon Lilly is here.
What's up, guys?
I'm super excited for this. It's funny, like you texted me not too long ago, and I thought maybe we just grab dinner, but I've seen you 4 times since you've been in town.
Yeah, it's been great, man. It's really unique to get out in this circle. The last few times I was out in LA, it was just a lot more forced, and this time around it seems much more casual, and a lot of that's your fault. You know, just the people you connect with and your circle of friends been it's been awesome to see.
It's always so cool to meet new people and immediately connect with them. And like I was saying to you before we started recording, I've introduced you to 6 to 8 new people since you've been here. And automatically everyone's like, "Oh, why isn't Brandon hanging out with us all the time?" Like, I love this dude, which is so cool to see.
Yeah, I think, like I told you before, 4 to 5 years ago, I'm not so sure that would have been the case. One, because I would have been really standoffish. Not so much that I was a negative or just a hard-nosed person. It was just that I felt like I didn't belong, so that automatically put a chip on my shoulder. And I think now, just understanding that I can learn so much from any situation, getting to meet those people and getting to talk with them and hear from them, and then just watching the way that you guys interacted was really good for me. I mean, I understand more than ever that I'm just a part of a wheel, and it's really cool to see. And you're a guy I told you I've looked up to for a long time, and
thank you.
Finally getting to connect in this way, much different than an email about an article that you wrote or something. So this has been great.
So let's talk a little bit more about that. You said 5 years ago we might not have gotten along as well, and certainly I would have been a different person. And it's always cool to see that, though, because sometimes you see people you haven't seen in 10 years, they're the same person. You're like, well, it's kind of a letdown, right? Like, I want to see people evolving and growing. Like some of the friends of mine that you've hung out with this weekend, every time I see them, they're better. They're different in some way, whether it's how they treat the waitress or something. And that's so cool. That inspires you to grow. So let's talk about your journey, specifically the last 5 years or so, and like what's changed for you, what you've gone through, where you were to where you are now.
So for now, I'd like to say that, and I talk about my injury a lot, but it was such a catalyst for so many things. So to backtrack before my injury, 2008, 2009, I was really reinvigorated with powerlifting. I was going through a lot of stuff in my personal life that I kind of delved into the powerlifting world even further than probably I should have or even planned to. And I started to find success, and I'd lost my job, marriage was in trouble, and whenever I'm sitting here powerlifting, I get this automatic reward, like either from the guys at the gym. I put a video on YouTube, and at the time it's like, oh my gosh, I got 100 views, or I got 500 views, or whatever it was. There was this instant gratification for the effort being put there rather than the effort being put into areas that maybe needed the most attention. So I get the invite to go to train at Westside Barbell. That was a huge catalyst. It kind of put me in front of people that were never have seen me otherwise. And from there, I got better as a lifter, but I kept going further and further down this hole of just, my life was all over the place. Finances were on the rocks. I just wasn't happy, but I was getting stronger. And like I was telling you just a few minutes ago, at some point, I was alienating myself from my family, my friends, and all in the pursuit of this total. Well, what was that total? I don't know, but I figured at some point there would come a time when I would hit a total or win a championship or a trophy where for all these people that I'd kind of like just pushed to the side would look at me and say, oh, it was all worth it. Now we forgive you. It's like now we see the bigger picture. That day never comes. If you don't treat people right, it doesn't matter what you do. You're going to be finding yourself alone. And fast forward a few years, I had just come off some really, really big totals and some wins in powerlifting, only to find myself injured. I'm coming up on the 4-year anniversary. I was out at the LA Staples Center, and I fell in a competition, blew both my legs out. The left knee was catastrophic, tore every single thing in it. And all these people, 100,000 people online, were just patting me on the back. Man, you're going to come back stronger. You're better for this. This is the making of a championship story, blah, blah, blah. But my parents didn't even know I competed. My family didn't even know that they knew I was somewhere, but they didn't know where.
Yeah.
And I had traded all of that for that perceived notion of success and being liked. You're only liked in that way when you're doing something that makes other people either feel good or gives them entertainment, right? People were around the first 4 or 5 months, the first 6 months after my injury. People would, text me and call me and offer encouragement, but then you have another surgery or you have a little setback. And I've gone through 14 surgeries. So I know this roller coaster ride. And the sad reality is I would text people that I really cared about their reply, and I wouldn't get a reply. And then when I would post that I was getting back in the gym and I was maybe getting stronger and people were following along, well, those people would text me back, hey, man, just want to check on you kind of stuff. So I went through that cycle, and I got tired of it, and I learned very, very quickly that as much as I had pointed the finger at everyone else and said they didn't support me or they didn't love me or they didn't care what I was doing, I did it in such a way that made them resentful of it.
Right.
When I pushed everyone away and when I chose this over family dinner and I did everything the wrong way because I was excited. And I see a lot of guys and girls out there doing this now. They're putting themselves out there in a way that feels good because you get an automatic response. But trust me, if you're a good-looking woman, you're going to age. If you're a big, strong guy, your muscles are going to get smaller one day. And when those things are gone, when the looks fade, when the muscles fade, when the strength fades, who are you? Yeah. And I can tell you, I wasn't a intentionally bad person, but I was a bad person. Intentional or not, I did not treat people the way that they should have been treated. And for me, that was a pretty humbling realization, especially, I kind of went through highs and lows, but definitely had to come to the point where I had to face myself. And that was tough. It was tough to admit that.
Yeah. And so did you kind of come to this realization slowly over the course of several months of kind of going through that?
I think it was just
it wasn't like one overnight epiphany thing where you had some kind of, or was it like some kind of hallucinogenics or something?
Absolutely. Yeah. So to touch on that and to just speak honestly, what I was doing was I was self-medicating. Through the injury, I was given a lot of pain pills. And it wasn't like I actually made the comment last night. It's funny how pain pills often don't do anything for pain, but they do something to help you get through the day. And that's when I was taking the pain meds. And it's not like I was sitting here taking a ton to get high. I was taking just enough to go to sleep. So I would get up early. I would take my meds. I would fall asleep until the sun would go down. Then it'd be like, well, I can't do anything now. I'm in these casts, and I don't have the ability to go anywhere. So rather than watch Netflix, just take some more pills, go to sleep. That was never my issue. My issue was always, that I liked to smoke weed, and that I would smoke to escape. I wasn't using weed or marijuana to enhance my experience. I was doing it to escape, same as the pain pills. So one day I decided that, you know what, I'm going to do this a little bit different. So I just turned on some music. I smoked a little bit, and I started writing. And I noticed that I enjoyed that writing very, very much. And it gave me a kind of feeling that working out used to, I felt like I'd accomplished something good. So I started to understand the relationship between.
And what were you writing? Was it kind of just free-flowing thoughts? Or?
A lot of it was apologies.
Oh, wow.
Honestly, a lot of it was apologies. A lot of it was defining people that I cared about. A lot of it was analyzing things that I wanted to do with my life, places that I wanted to go, and just writing stories to myself, just so I could actually have it down on paper. But these were things that I had thought about but never really critically thought about. They were just passing thoughts. But I think using the marijuana allowed me to slow myself down and actually just write on a topic as deeply as I wanted, or as fun, have as much fun with it as I wanted. Well, that led to all these other experiences, from doing, the mushrooms and then eventually DMT. And again, all with the mindset and the idea of, I'm not doing this to escape, and I'm not doing this for some kind of radical high. I'm doing this to see what I discover about myself.
Right.
And
as you and I know, I think the stigma's, if not totally removed, it's definitely being removed over the last few years, where people we know that are ultra successful and on that path to self-improvement and self-enlightenment, always do that kind of stuff now.
Well, and I think one of the things that I discovered about myself is, I'm a very fast-paced brain. I would say maybe, I have a hyper attention to certain things when I'm focused on them, but I easily get distracted.
Okay.
So that was a problem for me in that I would start a project, but I wouldn't finish a project.
Yeah.
I would start, wouldn't finish, and I would have all these ideas running rampant. So I really wanted to start meditating, and I wanted to start understanding myself. I couldn't do it. I was just too scattered. So what I did was I did a very, what I would just call like an introductory dose of the mushrooms, and that allowed me to chill out in a way that I was able to experience some of the highs, some of the visuals, but I also was able to go into a place where I was just still. Like I didn't feel rushed or pressured or whatever. And that's when a lot of emotions started coming out, a lot of things that I had probably stuffed down and hadn't faced and wanted to deny or just forget about. They came back to the forefront, and it was a very, very emotional thing. It was exhausting is a bad word because I think there's a negative connotation to that, but it was grueling to go through this and to face those things. But when I came out of it, what I realized, okay, this was a good thing, because for so many areas of my life, when things got hard, I ran from them. I ran towards what I was good, and I neglected what I was bad at.
Yeah.
So a lot of these memories, a lot of these feelings, a lot of these emotions were now back at the forefront. And when you're in that kind of space, when you're on that kind of high, you can't run from it because it's in your body. It's a chemical that's allowing you to either, you say you have a good trip or a bad trip. I think it's all in the response to how you react to it. So I was very open and I was very calm. I wasn't trying to fight it. I wasn't trying to do anything. I was actually trying to meditate while I was doing it. And I think that was the genesis. That right there was the genesis for a couple other trips. And to speak on this, it's not like something you want to do every day.
Yeah.
Because like I said, it is a challenging, grueling type experience the way that I've done it. So having done the mushrooms maybe 4 or 5 times now.
And Brandon, when you go through it, isn't it like the next 30 days you continue to see and evolve? And
that was it. Like to kind of fast forward to the DMT, when I did that, it's a very brief. It's 10 minutes, whereas the shrooms are maybe 3-4 hours. Sometimes you can get into other things that go longer, but the DMT was 10 minutes. And when I came up, I was talking to some friends that I had in the room with me that had done it, and they were close friends of mine. Well, how was it? And I was just speechless. Like, I knew what I saw and I knew what I felt, and it was very, very emotional again, because I think for a guy like myself, and I don't want to say a guy like us, but I think you've had similar realizations for yourself in different ways. But for me, my ego was my ego, and my insecurities were my insecurities. Rather than taking the time to work on my insecurities, I just pumped up the ego.
right.
So the ego didn't necessarily become bigger, it just became falsified. And my insecurities became more glaring because when I had to actually look at them, they had grown, because now I had to protect this ego, but I also had to address these insecurities. And I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be someone who was okay with being weak or being vulnerable or showing emotion. That's not manly. That's not what guys like us do. But in reality, when I came out of that DMT experience, I found it like I was very emotional, and I was very I wanted to be open, and I wanted to just share parts of myself that had been pushed down and locked away. And then I wanted to talk about things that I was insecure about, things that I didn't like about myself, things that I was envious of others. All of these things that are real human emotions and feelings, we somehow tell ourselves or try to trick ourselves into believing that we don't have them. And when I came out of that, it was like all of that was at the forefront. The ego was gone. I know that without ever lifting another weight, I'm still a human being, and I still have a value and a purpose and a voice. And I think for a long time, all of that was tied into, if I wasn't strong, I wasn't valuable. And now I realize that my strength under a barbell gave me a position to have value for those things.
Right.
So like we were talking earlier, the barbell will always be an anchor. It will always be a part of my day. It will always be a part of my life. But if my quest to be a better human being, a better parent, a better friend, a better son, whatever it may be, if that is tainted by my quest for 5 more pounds on the bar, what am I doing? I openly admit that now, whereas I'm aware. And once you're aware of something, if you continually go about it, then it's a problem. But now I feel like I can balance all of it. I may not be the strongest person in the world anymore, and it'd be amazing if I was, because these guys are crushing it now. But I think for me, a safer and a much happier place is to say, you know what? I had a good run for a few years. I mean, I was a competitive lifter for 17 years.
Wow.
But I guess I would say I was kind of at that upper elite level for 4 or 5 years. And rather than saying I have to get back to that to feel good about where I'm lifting, I had my 4 or 5 years, and these guys are phenomenal now, even more so than what I was even at my best before an injury. So I would rather step back and just applaud them and encourage their journey, compete beside them in my own way, share the platform with them at some point. But I don't have to beat them to be appreciative of them and appreciative of my own journey. That is not something that you would have heard me say 4 or 5 years ago.
Right.
Winning at all costs is good when winning is good for you. Winning was not good for me. It was destructive. And I was self-destructive to win.
Yeah. And it's such an important message, and it's inspirational to hear you, a guy who's so big, strong, jacked, to hear that, just chasing that goal, that number goal or whatever it may be, and it could be financial, anything. Sure. Guys chase these external goals, and when you get there, like you said, you're not really happy unless you address the other issues.
Well, I think what got down to me is we were measured by our best day, right? Yeah. In powerlifting, if you do, let's say, a 2,500 pound total, whether that's multiply or like Andrei Milanichev doing it raw now, it's insane. If he does that at 23 years old and he wants to live for 20 more years, that's pretty much what we've shown as human potential as of right now. What's he do for the next 20 years? He spends it injured, frustrated, angry, and probably going to the extremes to better himself, when really it just becomes a self-destructive pattern. Why not step back and say, let's do this? That's actually the way I coach powerlifting. I call it the investment approach. Let's get 5 pounds per cycle. That's 70, squat, bench, and deadlift, 5 cycles a year. That's 75 pounds a year. I get fired all the time for not getting 75 pounds in a cycle.
Yeah.
But if you give me 10 years, that's 750 pounds
right.
at the minimum.
Right.
At the minimum, that's 750 pounds. And if you want to do this for 10, 15, 20 years, that kind of approach makes sense. But that's not the way America works now. It's all or nothing right now. And I became that person that got the success fairly quickly, and then I found the frustration, the injury, and on and on and on. So I can tell you, you will be far more happy if you look at all the days that culminate in a career rather than just looking at the one day that you had your best.
Yeah. Because
if you dwindle 20 years of work into one day, that's a lot of misery. And Chuck Palahniuk was great for saying that. He was like, if you measure your life by the penultimate moment, you're going to have a lot of failure in your life. Because if you make $1 million in one day and you say for the rest of your trading career on the floor, if you don't make $1 million a day, you're a failure.
Right.
What if you make 900,000? That still ain't bad, right? But we do that so often, is that, I hit this total, so I have to hit more than that next time or I'm a failure. You're not a failure. It's just a measure of where you were that day.
Yep.
So I've totally changed my outlook on it. I see young guys right now that are doing phenomenal things. I just wonder where they're going to be in 10 years, not in a negative way, not in a hateful kind of way, but just in a worried kind of way, to know that for guys like us that get ingrained in that idea of success is always more, where are they going to go? If they're already at the upper echelon world record level, and I say this with no disrespect, I just worry about their happiness, because I was a person that I think a lot of people would have pointed at and said, I want what that guy has, and I was totally upset with who I was and the way that I had gone about things. So just not it's not what it's all cracked up to be unless you're doing everything else right.
Right. And what would you say, Obviously, you've covered some of it, but what do you prioritize more these days? And what's more important to you these days than, let's say, it was 5 years ago?
Well, sadly, I have to say my family is number one. I have to say that just the all-encompassing aspect of that, and knowing that there are people in my life now that, good, bad, strong, broken, whatever it is, they're there to support me. They're there behind me, and they're encouraging of what I do now in a way that is, I'm still lifting, I'm still pursuing the gym, and I'm still spending that much time there. But why are they supportive of it now versus before? Because I include them, because I make them a priority, because when my son has a soccer game or a basketball game or a baseball game, I'm there. When there's a family dinner, I'm there.
Yeah.
When it's a birthday, I'm there. So prioritizing them and showing them that I want to do all those things as a human, and going out with my friends, like, just showing up and being engaging and having conversation and not just thinking about the gym, they then see that it's a part of me, not controlling me. And I go back to the Book of Five Rings when he talks about, how he truly gained control of the sword when he picked up this paintbrush and he picked up the bonsai, because now he could set the sword down, and he chose when he was the swordsman. It was a part of his life. And that's, for me, the gym. I felt like I had to be all the way in, and it had to be all or nothing, do or die. And now it's like, okay, it's time for the gym. I pick up my gym personality. I go there, I train, and then I put it down, and I come back. And the rest of the day, for 22 hours of the day, I'm just a guy.
Yeah.
And for me, that's been really, really freeing as well, because I would dwell on the gym all day long. All day long, that's all I could think about. And now I think about it just before, and I kind of analyze it just after. But once I get my feet on the ground for my next step, it's just on and on and on. So
that's such an important lesson that I just want to reemphasize, because, entrepreneurs a lot of times will just work 24/7. Guys who are training for a sport or powerlifting, whatever, they, just what you said, they think they have to be all in. And I found so many times that when you add more stuff, like you said, about the paintbrush and the bonsai, what your main focus is gets better. Your business or your lifting or your sport, whatever, gets better. When you're 100% focused on that one thing, it's not healthy, and it just can't reach the highest level. When you add other stuff, like a lot of times I'll talk to guys who are struggling with their business, and I'll tell them, okay, I want you to sign up for an instrument, take guitar lessons 3 times a week, take yoga 3 times. And they're like, what? And I'm like, trust me, just do more shit and your business will get better.
Well, you have to prioritize, and then you also become...
You just open your mind, right, to different perspectives and things like that.
Yeah.
Think differently.
I think that's one of the biggest things for me is, like, I still have deadlines just like anyone else. I still have things that I have to accomplish and get done. But, like, so for one of the big changes I made this year, really just before the end of the year last year, I am not a good morning person. I don't thrive getting up early. It's always been a challenge for me because I would always go to bed late. So to facilitate getting up early, I prioritize turning the phone off, getting in bed, reading something instead of watching TV. And lo and behold, it still sucks when that alarm clock goes off. But I get up at 4:30. I'm working out by 5:30. I'm done by 7, and that's a full workout plus a sauna trip. And at 7 o'clock in the morning, it's hard to look at your day and say, I'm not going to get stuff done when I've already gotten so much done.
Right.
And then I go sit at my favorite coffee shop. I have a nice cup of coffee. I work on an article, or I read an article. And by 10 o'clock, I'm just rolling, and changing. Like, I could sleep in all day and I could still get my stuff done, but having that ability to change myself for the sake of discipline, getting myself done, and then at 3 or 4 o'clock, it's like, okay, I've got all night to do whatever I want. So that comes down to, I can go to a ball game, or I can go hang out with my friends, or I can go to a dinner, or any number of things that I want to do, but I still do challenging things. I picked up jiu-jitsu, I'm doing yoga, and like I said, those things also crunch time.
Yeah.
But it makes me, when I sit down to write an article, I actually sit down to write the article. I'm not getting lulled into these, like, okay, I want to check Yahoo, or I'm going to check this, or I'm going to check that. I stay on task. And somebody asked me what was the last show that I'd watched. I really haven't been able to watch much television because I'm going all the time.
Yeah.
Do I feel exhausted? No, I feel more charged than ever.
I love that.
And my dad even asked me, he was like, are you taking some Adderall or something? And honestly, I think it just being happy is my drug,
Yeah.
you know, and that sounds so cliche and it sounds so ridiculous, but it's true. Like, I have a hard time getting upset now because, one, I just look at the day for what it is. It's just one day. It's not forever. And if something bad happens, getting upset and getting frustrated, that's natural human reaction. But the sooner I get over that and get to fixing it, the better off I'll be. And then the next thing you know, I'm happy again. And it's really, I'm really almost emotional saying it now to say how happy I am, because for 10 years I was not a happy person, and it was something that I was chasing a happiness, but it was always right in front of me. It was always right there.
And what are you consciously working on each day to get better? Is there certain things you notice, oh, this is still a weakness of mine, this is what I want to improve each day, or just, how you approach your day from morning to night?
So one of my biggest problems, one of my biggest weaknesses is the feeling of letting other people down and being completely honest at all times. So if I can't do something, if you ask me to do something and I want to do it because it's like, okay, this is a guy that I look up to, this is a guy that I respect, this is a guy that I don't want to let down. If I tell you I can do it, even when I know that I can't, I've already let you down, right?
Yeah.
Because either the work that I do get done is going to sacrifice and it's not going to be what you expected, or I'm going to back myself into a corner where I say, hey, you know what? This is just not going to get done. And then you're like, well, I'm not calling that guy again. So it's better for me to trust the fact that I'm just going to be honest in all fronts. Hey, man, I got a really busy schedule. It'd be a lot better for you. It'd be a lot better for me if I can knock this out for you in a week. And you know what? If you don't want my work in a week, I have to live with that.
Yeah.
But that's the best answer I can give you, and that's the most honest answer I can give you. So number one, understanding that communication and honesty above all else is going to make your life so much simpler, because if you communicate, like even if I do take something on that I'm worried about getting done, if I communicate that along the way, it doesn't come down to the deadline and then everybody's shocked that it's not done.
Right.
So those are the things for me, is just being simple and being true to that simplicity. And what is simplicity? You don't have to worry about anything if you're brutally honest. If you pick up the phone instead of texting stuff, you have the hard communication. You deal with things up front. You don't let them linger. Take everything as it comes. I think Dan John makes a really good point. He said, be a shark.
Yeah.
Deal with it once and move on. And that's the way I am. And that was hard for me, because in this business, you know how it is. You don't know if you're going to get that call again. You don't know if somebody's going to ask you to do something. So you want to work and you want to put yourself out there. But if you're sacrificing your ability to do it at a high level, what you're going to find is that you're not going to get calls anyway.
Yeah.
So I want to do work, and I want to do it to the highest ability that I possibly can. But I also want to do it in a way that is respectful of myself, my family, my friends, and I don't sacrifice time with them or experiences with them to do something for somebody that's not really going to appreciate me. So I assess what the offers for work that as they come in. It's like when I work with a client, they get an intro interview. Am I just taking their money, or am I actually trying to make them a better person?
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, at a point in time, money was the only thing, because, okay, I've got bills, so I got to make money. That happened. I learned from that. You have to go back and you have to say, you know what? People matter more than the money. And if the people are taken care of, if I'm doing my job in the right way, then I will attract the right kind of people, and then I won't have to worry about this money. And it's not like I'm doing this to get super rich. I'm doing this to take care of people. And because of that, I've found good work, and I've found good opportunities from that. And it's all come from being real to myself. I think that's one of the things that was the most freeing, is changing the public perception of who they thought I was and who I thought I had to be, who I had to play. Because, powerlifting is filled with hardcore people, that hardcore mentality. I was like, are they going to like me if I put this, that I went and saw a ballet? Are they going to like this if they see that I went to an art show? And you know what? If you don't, why would I care if you follow me? Because we're not going to get along in person anyway. Yeah. Like if me show.
We'll talk about that a little bit more. When you first decided, okay, I no longer care about that, I'm no longer going to worry about that. It had to be a struggle, and maybe it still is sometimes. When you put something out there, maybe like, oh, I'm still worried about what certain guys think or something.
Sure. Well, I think for me, I know one of the clearest points that I had was I posted. Have you seen the documentary Dancer?
No.
Okay, so it's about I would butcher his name if I tried to recall it right now, but he was a Russian dancer. He danced a lead in the British Ballet at 16. He was one of the youngest stars ever, and he's just like what we're talking about. He was a guy who had all this fame, all this fortune, and all this success, and he was miserable because he used to dance because the music moved him, and now he danced because it was a production and because he had to. So he just left dancing, and it like shocked the entire world. And then he finds, he finds this one song, the "Take Me to Church" song. He said, I was listening to it and it just connected with me. So he filmed himself dancing to that, and it was like he's back. He's totally back. But there was no director. There was no. Yeah. It was just him dancing for the sake of dancing. And I posted about that, and man, the comments, you wouldn't believe. There was some bigotry, and there was just some misunderstanding about what I was saying. And I watched the follower count just fall. But when I posted that, I was like, I absolutely loved this movie, and I connected with it. That's okay. Yeah. Like that was the first time I remember feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't have to scramble and like delete it. And you know what I mean? Because we work hard to present ourselves in a way that will facilitate our message and our views. And if I'm not sharing things that I truly believe in and care about, then I'm not being honest. And that goes back to the same thing. Like people are like, well, I wish you would just go back to posting more about your lifting. All right, well, I can continuously post about things I'm proficient at and be a human highlight reel. But I'd rather show you the hard times and the struggles and the things that I'm not good at. That's why I started posting the rows, because I'm trying to change my life. And you don't change your life continuously doing things that are easy. You change your life by doing things that are hard, new, and get you outside your comfort zone. And believe it or not, it's hilarious now. When I go into my message box, overwhelmingly, I get more pictures of people on rowers than I do of people squatting. And I'm proud. So cool I'm proud of that. Yeah. I'm proud of that because I know what that guy is going through. Right. For some people, an 800-pound squat is easy, and for some people, a 500-pound squat is going to be the maximum of their life. Those are relative. That rower is always hard. Yeah. I don't care if you're in shape, if you're out of shape. That rower is hard. I mean, lifting is hard too, but there's just such a stripped-down connection to that rower. It's just you start it and you finish it. Yeah. And that's what I love. I mean, I absolutely love that aspect, and I love that people have connected with me in a way that maybe they're changing their life because of that. If getting a rower is the catalyst to changing their life for the better, and it makes them a better parent, a better friend, I mean, I don't know that a rower does that, but they took the opportunity to do something.
Now, do you find over the last few years that you've gone through this, that you have a heightened level of self-awareness where – because I still do. Like, I've overcome a lot, but we all have insecurities, right? So if I do something, let's say we're out with a group like we were for brunch the other day, I instantly know when I say or do something out of insecurity, or I say something just for what other people thought, and I'll catch myself and be like, oh, fuck, I shouldn't have done that,
100%.
Whereas years ago, I never knew it. It was just repressed somewhere.
Well, I think that's it. You don't know, and I think it's human instinct to want to be liked and to want to be involved. And I think that you have to be really careful not to sit and be super self-critical. Sure. But when it becomes inauthentic, I know exactly what you're talking about. Because
just a small thing. You're like, I want to work on that tomorrow.
Well, and
do less of that.
That used to be me. I used to be Mr. F-bomb. Every video I had was F-bomb, F-bomb, F-bomb. Yeah. Because, this guy tells it like it is. He's hardcore, right?
Same thing with me. So,
and that was the mindset that I was in. Uh-huh. But I was selling myself on what I was saying as much as I was telling someone else. Like, I'm not that hardcore guy, but I think I have to be. So I'm telling myself, you have to be this person. Right. And you have to talk this way. I mean, I went to school as an English major, and actually he was one of the guys that called me out on it. He was like, you speak much better when you don't drop an F-bomb every 5 minutes, you know? And he was like, if you're angry or if it's real, say it, but don't say it just to say it. And another person that's a really good friend of mine, Alex Oliver, he served in the SEAL teams and just a fantastic human being all the way around. I asked him for advice. I said, what do I say when somebody comes to me with a life question or a question about turning things around? He said, number one, you have to consider that they ask you. So that means something. And number 2, make it count. Whatever you say, make it count. Don't just rattle off the first thing in your head. And I think one of the things that has worked so well for me is when I engage with people is, sure, I'll get into a rattle where I'm just going and we're talking and there's a good banter. But if somebody like kind of switches things and switches gears to a point where it's serious and they're really asking something reflective, I just kind of stop for a second and I don't give that knee-jerk reaction because, one, their question might elicit a question from me for better understanding. Because the advice, financial advice for a guy with $1 million in the bank versus financial advice for a guy that just overdrew is going to be different.
Yeah.
Right? So I need to know more. And a lot of times I've asked questions that have given me an opening to say more than I would have originally. So just having that understanding of who I am, what I'm really trying to convey, and how I convey it, yes, 100% I agree with you because I still find myself slipping in that regard where I'll somebody will say, did you hear this or did you see this? And like, I'll jump all over it. Like, oh yeah. And I'm sitting over here on my phone, like trying to catch up. So I'm in on the conversation when really, no, the best answer would say, no, I haven't. Tell me about it.
Yeah.
And learning, and just feeling like you don't have to be a part of everything to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally get that. And I would have to say that I'm doing better, but I'm also kind of aware of when other people do it too.
Yeah. Yep.
And again, it's not a knock on anybody. It's just
both ways, right? You can learn, I want to do more of that. I love how that guy interacts with people, or I don't want to do that. And sometimes I catch things I do in other people that I wasn't aware of, right? Like I say, oh shit, I think I'm doing that.
Sure.
I've got to make sure I don't do that.
Well, and I think one of the things that I most admire about you is that every person I've come in contact that spoke of you was like, you're the catalyst. You bring people together and you create opportunities and experiences. And I think that's what everybody should want to be, is somebody that people kind of magnetize to, because they know, one, it's a safe place, it's a good time, and you're going to do something really unique and meet new people. I think for me, that's a huge goal, is to have that community. Like I was saying before, it's kind of hard in Kentucky because most of my contacts are spread so far out.
Right.
But then again, am I doing enough locally to make sure that I have that community? Yeah, I have my family and I have a few close friends, but I want more people to come. I want more people to be involved. Not for any selfish reason, but just I want to do really cool stuff with really cool people.
Yeah.
And for now, I can talk forever about it, but I used to think, oh, you have to come see me. No, it's like I might be the reason that I called you and you're coming to this place, but it's not about me. It's about the dinner that occurs or the meal that we have or the talk that we have. It's just sharing in that. And I think for me, that was lacking for so long, was that human community.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lesson for everybody listening just in the trip you took. I mean, you just basically, as far as I know, just came out here just to meet people and hang out and just have great experiences and network. And
Dr. Belissa, she put on the breathing event, and she was like, if you're in California and you want to see some cool stuff, because I worked with her one-on-one.
Yeah.
And in a 90-minute breathing session, she was also a big catalyst. And 90 minutes of breathing, I was soaking wet.
Yeah.
It was one of the hardest workouts of my life, and it's like, it shouldn't be this hard to just breathe. So she was doing the coaching course. So I came out here to be a part of that and see it. I wasn't actually an attendee. I was just kind of a volunteer observer, and to further my information, so that maybe a powerlifter along the way, I can help them out. Well, then that led me to you. It led me to talking to Joey Diaz. It led me to talking to all these different people. And it was just because, I talk about 5 years ago, like it's this marker point, but I just know that I'm so different from that time. I would have been out here just hammering, like knocking on doors, trying to get my foot in anywhere that I could. And with this trip, it was like, you know what? I'm just going to come out here. I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to enjoy it and get my feet on the ground. And Matt Vincent sees that I'm in LA. Hey man, where you at? Why don't you come over here? I'm getting tattooed by Nico Hurtado. Okay. Nico's probably my favorite artist of all time. One of the greatest tattoo artists ever. So I got to meet him and I got to hang with Matt. And then that led to, oh, you're over at Nico's? Why don't you come over here? So it just organically happened. And I tell people all the time, you have to get out and you have to go with the expectation that nothing will happen, but the hope that everything will happen.
Yeah.
And that was exactly what this trip was. Like, I didn't know. We had talked about doing a podcast. I didn't know. And when things, kept coming up, an older version of me would have been like, you know what, forget that guy. Like, screw him, But now, it was like I was telling Melissa, she said, I hope that it works out and I hope you guys can connect. If not, I'm still in your contact book. We can still talk about the next time, or we can set something up when it makes more sense. That's still better than not coming out here and not making that connection. So I think understanding that you're not going to get that home run every single time, but you got to go. You got to do things and you got to get out there. And this has been one of the most electrifying trips for me, and I absolutely had zero plan.
Yeah, that's so cool to hear. I love that.
And I got to meet Pixie.
Yeah.
So that made the trip right there altogether.
That was so funny because we didn't even know. So we were out to dinner, and Brandon walks in, and Pixie was sitting there, and you're like, hey, I know you. And we're all like, what? How? Because we didn't know that our friend Pixie was on LA Inc.
Well, she didn't know that she was my girlfriend for a long time. But, yeah, it was so cool. And speaking of transitions and changes, she was on LA Inc. and I even told her this. I was like, you were the hot, sexy, kind of risque chick, and I was like, you're every bit of that, but you're in a beautiful way now.
Yeah, what a transformation she's made.
And to see that, I would still say that I'm in the beginnings of a journey for myself. To see someone who's a decade in on it, and to see someone like yourself who's, much further than I am, it's really good to gravitate towards those people because they're going to show you where you're going, but also you're going to listen and you're going to hear, okay, it gets hard sometimes. Because I look at guys like you or like a guy like Gunnar Peterson. I train with Gunnar. I look at you guys as bulletproof, as guys that make no mistakes, at guys that knock it out of the park.
Far from the case.
and that's exactly it.
Yeah.
But until you have that moment where you connect as a human and not as, this is Jason behind the screen, or this is Gunnar, the trainer of whoever.
Right.
Until you connect on that human level, you just don't know. And listen, whoever you are, I'm just a guy from Paint Lick. It's not like obviously the powerlifting success kind of helped get my foot in the door, but I could show you a log of my miles and the places that I've gone for 1 hour meetings with people that didn't even know I was coming. Like I've trained with almost everybody that I've ever wanted to train with. I've met with people, even if it's just putting my hand in their hand and shaking their hand. I've taken those chances. I've spent a fortune to do it, but I've never regretted it. Even when I was at my worst, I knew it would mean something someday, and now the reality of the payoff is coming because it's human connection.
Yeah.
It's not a total on the bar. It's not $1 in the bank. It's human connection and putting those situations into how do they lead to more human connections.
Yeah. Well, I always go back to the Maya Angelou quote, which I've been thinking of throughout everything you've been saying here. People will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget the way you made them feel.
100%.
Yeah. So what else? Is there anything else you have to do or do regularly on a daily basis? So do you not meditate?
Oh, I do meditate.
Oh, you do meditate now? Okay.
Yes, 100%. Okay. I'm still learning.
Okay.
And I think that's one of the things about it. I kind of put an open invitation out there when I work out at home. I'm like, hey, come join me. I'm here at 5:45. Be there.
Yeah.
And some days no one comes. Some days 3 or 4 people come. But they go through my routine. And it's not so much that I don't consider theirs. It's like, just do what I do for a day so you can see how somebody maybe, and I hate to say this in a way that sounds, kind of arrogant, but someone who's better than you in the gym, how they do it. So it always surprises them because, 1, I move really, really fast in the gym, and 2, I don't lift as heavy as they expect. Now, some of that's because of the place that I am in my training, but also I'm very much a believer in the volume aspect of things. And then we do the sauna. When we get to the sauna...
You do the sauna every day?
Every day.
Wow.
I mean, 20 minutes a minimum, an hour is a maximum.
Okay.
And one of the things that a lot of times I see is they struggle when they get in the sauna. They don't know how to breathe. They don't know. It's like anything else. You got to work at it.
Yeah.
And one of the coolest things about the sauna when I was in Finland, over there they require that you go without a towel. You go completely nude. So I'm in there with this old guy, very, very old guy. And he's also one of the guys that just splashes the rocks, and gets it 1,000,000,000 degrees in there.
Yeah.
But I asked him, I said, what's the purpose of going completely naked? And he said, well, this isn't a way to cleanse yourself and to cleanse your mind and to accept yourself. And he said, if you can't accept your body for what it is, how are you ever going to accept your mind for what it is? So that didn't really hit me because I didn't sauna regularly.
Yeah.
But now doing it every day, of course here it's a co-ed place, so you wear shorts and you use a towel. But that is something that I totally get, the aspect of it is a self-acceptance, because I try to go in there and I'll always listen to like some kind of like meditative music or something that's kind of peaceful. And I just check out for 15, 20 minutes. And that's where I meditate the best, because I think the heat is another obstacle for me. And like when I do the hot yoga, that's the most awful part of it for me is the heat.
Yeah.
So, but learning to find that point where you're breathing in such a way that you calm down and you don't have that immediate like reaction to get out of this, it's too hot or whatever. Just to be still and to accept it. That's helped me a lot in life, because I can't control what somebody else is doing, just like I can't control the heat. But if I learn to accept it and think my way through it, the next thing you know, you've conquered whatever's in front of you. And it's those little successes that have really helped me turn around some of the bigger failures in my life. Learning to control myself, learning to not have that impulse reaction, learning to speak myself much more clearly and with empathy of the person I'm speaking to. Like, I don't try to bull over people anymore, because I'm a kind of person in the way that I look and the way that I've built myself that's very intimidating to a lot of people. And a lot of times I know people kind of cringe and they do something that they don't want to do if I hammer them.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that guy. I would rather come to a commonality because we both communicated well and it benefited both of us in whatever way it did. So the meditation, the kind of empathy and emotion and just the ability to love, really, as that's changed my whole world.
Yeah.
Is being able to show those things proudly, not being ashamed of I love somebody. That's the greatest thing in the world. If you love someone and you connect with them, you should absolutely be proud of it, because I think it's the rarest thing in the world right now. I mean, real love is dead or is dying. I mean, it's just not out there the way that it should be.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so it's funny, we're almost at 50 minutes into this and we haven't talked nuts and bolts of training yet, which is funny because if we didn't get to know each other over the last 5 days and we did the podcast, that's what I would have started with.
Sure.
But we've evolved, so much and had such a. So let's get into training a little bit. Let's take an average guy our age, 35 to 45, works full time, doesn't want to be a competitive lifter or whatever. How would you set up a program for that guy? He wants to get jacked, he wants to be strong, but it's not his whole life,
Well, that's the thing. I've kind of been evolving this program, what I call the hardened athlete, and it's a play on the fact that we are trying to be a harder version of ourselves as an athlete, but life hardens us as well. So this is a perfect program, and I'm not trying to sell you on that particular program. I'm just trying to give you the principles of it, is that for a person 35 to 45, movement is number one. And we get a lot of stuff where we're down on the floor and we get up off the ground. And for me, having knee injuries, that's one of the hardest things I could do. So what did I do? I started getting on the floor. I started getting back up. I made it a lot more fun than burpees. But, for me, I understand that lifters have certain limitations because of injury or because of time that they haven't been in the gym. So what we do is we do a lot of box squats as an introduction, unless they're, they've proven that they've been in training for a while. And then we do free squats, we do the deadlift, we do the bench press, because those things are our core. They're very, very simple, straightforward movements, tons of information out there, and they don't take a great deal of technique work to master, whereas the clean and jerk and the snatch can be extremely difficult for someone trying to do it on their own. Beyond that, we look at how those main lifts work for us and the information that they give us as far as needs for accessory. We'll do some accessories to, in a hypertrophy type fashion to build the muscle. But then we also go right back into the movement with kettlebell complexes. We do farmer's carries, yoke walks. So it's a really good blend for me between the powerlifting background that I have, the movement background that I've been shown, as well as the strongman background that I have. We try to blend all of that into a program
And do you tend to set it up like upper lower or movement
Yeah,
pattern based?
upper lower.
Okay.
And then there's always a conditioning portion, whether it be weighted conditioning or just straight out conditioning. And I try to keep these workouts 45 minutes to an hour because the people that I enjoy working with now are highly driven people, business professionals. They don't have 4 or 5 hours to kill in the gym. That 45 minutes in the gym.
4 days a week?
4 days a week.
Okay.
I have some guys that just like the 5-day grind,
Okay.
but I do pretty much recommend 2 days off no matter what. That's kind of a way that I give it a 2-day reset.
Yeah.
Even for supplementation and diet, I allow my people eat really well 5 days, like do everything I tell you. In the next 2 days, eat good 4 out of the 5 meals.
Okay.
And give yourself those free meals so you can live. You can enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
But that has worked really well for me. It's given me an invigoration in the gym, but it's also connected me with a bunch of people that would have never listened to a word I said as just the powerlifter.
Right.
Because powerlifting for me is mathematic. There's, Prilipin's chart is the kind of the gold standard. And for me in writing a program, that's easy for me because I just refer to that chart and I refer to 10, 12 years of writing programs. That's straightforward, and I can get you strong as hell. If I want to make you a better person, if I want to enhance your life through the gym, that's going to take some work. That's going to take some creativity, and that's going to take communication. So these clients that are on that hardened athlete program have made me a better coach because it forces my hand a little bit.
Right.
I have to talk with them more. I have to understand their needs a little better, and I always have to adjust on the fly. So that's kind of where I am right now with the programming is I want to make sure that people are working, but they're also moving and understanding that the movement we're doing today is not because it only impacts today. It's you're going to be 50 soon. You're going to be 60 in a few years. Health is somebody said it the other day. It's not a lifestyle. It's a way of life. So if I can give you the foundation point through this program and enhance that, if you're a better dad because you can now go outside, like this is me. I couldn't go outside and throw baseball with my kid because I was 340 pounds. I was jacked as hell, but I had back pumps.
Yeah.
I would just get so muscularly fatigued just throwing a baseball.
Yeah.
Like how ridiculous. So now through this program, I'm a better dad.
Yeah.
I'm more excited about things, and I'm able to go longer because my cardio capacity is there. I'm still a 290-pound guy, and I'm still probably one of the strongest guys in the gym. It's just a little bit different focus now. So I think you can have your cake and you can eat it too.
Yeah.
So you just gotta adapt for it.
So take me through a little bit more of the specifics of the setup. Is it more of like a heavy light, like a West Side influence? Does every day start with a heavy lift and then?
So the way it works is the cube rotation. Just to give you a basic overview of that, each lift is through the determination. If the squat is heavy, the bench will be for reps and the deadlift will be for speed. The next week, everything rotates around. So if it was heavy last week, now it's lightened. The next one, which was repetition, is now heavy, and so on and so forth. So it goes through this nice rotation pattern to where every 3 weeks, one of the lifts is deloaded, or all 3 lifts are deloaded over 3 weeks. And that tends to keep it fresh and interesting, but it also gives you the intensity drive that you're looking because you are lifting heavy, but it's instead of going heavy all the time just for the sake of heavy, it's understanding that, okay, I'm going fast to learn to move fast. I'm doing the repetition to build the muscular and the endurance, and then I'm testing that factor with a heavy weight. So the percentages are waived in such a way that at the beginning, if you're moving 70% for speed, by the 10th week, you're moving 80% for speed. Your repetition days are 80%, finishing at 90% at 10 weeks. Now your heavy days are 90 and you're cresting at 105. So you hit a PR every 10 weeks. But then the cool thing is your mindset changes because now the speed days are what the reps were and the rep days are what the heavy days were. So it not only conditions you mentally to understand that you can progress in such a way, but the physical progression is really, really good. So we start with the power lift first. Then we go into the general accessories that are based from the power lift, 1 or 2 there, and then we do 2 to 3 kettlebell complexes, supersets or giant sets. So it's always either a push or a pull or something overhead or something getting on the ground. So they complement one another, and the rest periods are very, very brief. That way you can keep moving and you're not working the same muscle over and over and over. And then we finish with some kind of conditioning. So power lift, accessorize, complex, condition.
Okay.
Every single day, 4 days a week, and the intensities will rotate with the lifts. And then Saturday is the day that I do just kind of a cleanup day, and that's off the wall. It might be heavy as hell. It might be an hour on the rower. It might be it rotates based on what you need the most because you're going to enjoy it the least.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's fun because the people that, oh God, I can't row for an hour. The sense of accomplishment that they get when that hour is done is so rewarding. It's more rewarding than a heavy deadlift PR because this is what they don't want to do, and they did it. And you don't think that carries over into your business life? It absolutely carries over. So it carries over into everything, and that's why I've just taken off and run with it. I mean, I rode a marathon on the 8th day after rolling 7 straight half marathons. I'm not built for that, but I didn't worry so much about the speed. I just worried about finishing. That's a big thing for me, is finishing and helping other people who feel like they failed over and over succeed through finishing.
Yeah.
And for me, success starts when you finish, because now you start something else.
Yeah.
So I'm having a lot of fun with it.
So you love doing the rower. What else are some of your favorite conditioning
For me, because of my knee, with the 14 surgeries, running is out because of the cadence. I can't keep that pace, so I have to slow myself down. I can do really purposeful yoke walks where I just kind of step, flex, stride, step, flex, stride. Farmers carries much the same way. I can do stairs with a sandbag carry. I can do a lot of pulls with the rope. We do a lot of things with the prowler where I do a lot of step and strides. Just anything and everything that I think is going to be awful. That's what I do, and it's cool in a way because I'm not sitting there hitting these like super fast times with the prowler. And I found that the muscular recruitment is so much more individually to like the hamstring or the glute when I'm slowing it down and I'm kind of striding out. Joe DeFranco talks a lot about that, and that was one of the things that I really picked up on. I was at an event with him at New York, and I'm always a guy 40 yards as fast as you can because I worked with football, right?
Yeah.
Push that prowler 40 yards as fast as you can. Well, what if you did 25 yards and it was heavier and you were really having to grind with those legs?
Yeah.
Do it. It's a totally different world because we're compensators. We figure out the fastest, best way to get it done, and this way we're isolators. We're isolating it down to a specific group and not necessarily getting it done the most efficient way, but it's kind of a survivalist way with that muscle group.
Yep.
And it's interesting. And for somebody that doesn't have bad knees, of course, they do the gamut. They do fast, they do slow, they do heavy, they do light. And it just opens the door to so much creativity in the gym. It's something that I was severely lacking in because my gym was oatmeal. It was the same thing every single time, over and over and over. Yep. Yeah. Don't change what's working.
Any top couple tips if a guy's just really skinny and wants to gain weight?
So I'll tell you the things that help me the most. If you're saying that you're having trouble gaining weight, by all means, just start getting in 5 meals. I say learn the discipline of eating by just finishing, right? If you can't eat structured meals, if you don't want to weigh your food out, at first you just have to get 5 meals in to understand how that works. Then we can go to the next step. Let's get a really good breakfast, and then we'll just get through the day if it's 4 other meals, whatever, and slowly condition them around that process. But for me, like if you're getting the 5 meals in and it's not enough, when I wanted to gain weight, one of my easiest tips was I would just always add a peanut butter and jelly sandwich to every meal. So you look at a 400 and 500 calorie sandwich over the course of 4 to 5 times a day. That's an extra 2,500 calories per day. And then you throw that in with a big glass of milk and a couple Oreos at night. That's not going to make the nutritionist happy. But if you're truly a hard gainer, you're going to have to try some extreme things. And I was a hard gainer. I started out at 165 pounds.
Wow.
And I worked my way up to 340 pounds. And here's the other secret that all these people don't want you to know. If you averaged out, for 18 years, my lifting, pretty much from the time I started till my heaviest and my biggest a few years ago, it was 12 years, I think. But if you weighed that out, I only gained about a pound a month. Even, so these people that are saying you'll gain 20 pounds in 6 weeks or any of that stuff, they're just trying to get your money or they're just trying to get your investment in something, because I can get you to gain 10 pounds in a month. I really can. Now, whether you like the way you look, probably not going to be the case. But sometimes those kind of gains are necessary to elicit that pound a month of muscle gain. But for me, it's a much slower, steadier process now to getting things done by working a little bit harder, but working a lot smarter.
Yeah.
At 45 years old, what is that 10 pounds for? What is it? What is it really benefiting you? Okay. If that's a goal you want to get to, we'll get there, but we have to assess why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
My strongest was at 309. I weighed 309 when I hit my biggest raw total. So why did I gain 35 more pounds? It just made me feel worse. That's a 10% gain in body mass over that period. And you think about that, at 300 pounds, 10% is massive.
Yeah.
So I think that you get in this pattern of just doing what you've always done instead of doing what you need to do. And for me, that was it. So if 5 meals, if you're doing that and you're telling yourself it's not working, you have to eat a little bit more, but keep it fun. Like, try the peanut butter and jelly, try a bowl of ice cream at night, and see the scale start moving, and then see is it moving in the way that you want, and then reassess.
And do you tweak the training at all? Like, would you reduce the conditioning?
Yeah, I think it would probably be that I would shorten some of the lifting sets, not trying to hammer them with the conditioning, but what I don't want to do is start cutting the conditioning out, because that's what people hate the most.
Yeah.
So I try to fluff it in the middle and then keep the conditioning there. It's going to be adjusted, but it still needs to be in there just for the purpose of discipline, and then also the health aspect of it, because I got to a point where my heart was terrible. It was it was so bad. My blood pressure was so bad. All because I was lazy.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the gym for a long time. I just didn't dedicate to the right things, and I was good in spite of my laziness.
Yeah.
And I think that's the hardest issue with the lifters that I try to reach out to. When something's working for them, when they're achieving the goal within the sport, which is more pounds on the bar, it's hard to hear somebody say, hey, man, if you worked on your breathing, that would be really beneficial.
Right.
Or if you got a CPAP and you slept better, that would be really beneficial. It's only when they fall. It's only when they struggle and they've spent 6 months spinning their wheels that they're willing to listen to me now.
Yeah.
Do it now. Do it before your competitor does it. Do it before you actually need it. Do it now, and it will be so much easier in the long run, because of all the goodness that has come from my injury, I wouldn't change it. But if you'd asked me, 5 minutes before I fell, hey, you have to go to yoga, you have to do this breathing, you have to do all this stuff, or you're going to get injured, like definitively you're going to get injured, I would absolutely have started right then. But up until that point, if you just said, hey, man, come over here and breathe, whatever, dude. Like,
right.
No way.
Yeah.
But if you think about this, and this is what was my wake-up call, you can go for a month without eating and probably be awful, but you'll survive. You can go for a week without drinking, probably going to be awful, but you'll survive. Try to go more than 5 minutes without breathing.
Yeah.
And when you start to realize that gives you a good structure of what you should be focusing on. Breathing 1, hydration 2, nutrition 3, training 4, the recovery of that 5. If you have those 5 things in line, you're doing much better than I was at my best. And you'll get there, because strength is a funny way of having an equalizer. There are guys that get out front because of the genetics, but over time I've seen some just really hard grinders that catch up. It's just a matter of how you measure when your success point is. You can't look at 25. You have to look when the day is done. When all the lifting is done, where did you end up? Because at 18, nobody would have looked at me and said, oh, you're going to be a 340-pound powerlifting champion, because I was 165 pounds.
Right.
At 340, at 30 years old, nobody's going to look at me and say, man, I bet you were a good swimmer back in high school, which I was. Yeah. So the genetics argument is real, but I don't let anyone say, oh, I don't have the genetics for that. You don't know until you might not have been doing the stimulus for your genetics. Yeah. So you have to stimulate to see where the genetics take you.
Let's shift gears here and do just a couple rapid fire. I know you're a big reader, so it could be hard, but give me a couple books that made a huge impact on you.
Number one is I've been giving it to a lot of my clients and a lot of friends, is Tribe by Sebastian Junger. Yeah. That was one that it really hit home with me in the fact that it didn't explain my life as much as it gave me an understanding of the world around me and why we're struggling with a lot of what we got going on. We don't communicate in the way that we're designed to. We don't communicate interpersonally. We communicate through an interface. We're selfish. We're not community driven. We're individually driven, and we're consumers. Like one of the things that he points out that I love so much, consumerism wasn't so much a thing, or material goods weren't such a value because it was a burden to move. Yeah. And we were nomadic. Now we sit down and we plant roots. We get a biggest house as we possibly can. We get as many cars as we possibly can, and we get as much stuff as we possibly can, because look at me, I have value. Our value system is flip-flopped. It used to be from what we
And you
could
see so many people who get that, and they're like, I am so unhappy now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, it's rampant. I tell people all the time, it's the housewives of wherever effect. Those people on those shows have the ability or the access to have almost anything and everything that they want. And it's hour after hour after hour of misery watching those shows. Let that be a lesson to you, because I had those championships. I had those totals. And while that felt good, I still had to go home and be miserable.
Yeah.
You know, so don't take it as like I'm saying that I was unhappy with the sport or anything like that. Your happiness is also, this is something else. Your happiness is not a steady state. It's not constant.
Right.
The average of your day can be happy, but you still have to work at it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not something that you just wake up and you're automatically happy one day. It's no dollar amount. It's no amount of friends. It's no food or whatever. It's doing things that make you happy intrinsically, and then sharing that with people that make you happy intrinsically. And I think for me that was huge, and Tribe really touches on a lot of that stuff. The other book that I really liked was Extreme Ownership by Jocko.
Yeah.
And then his second one, that was the manual. Those are just two books that I kind of reference along with his podcast, just for ongoing positivity. And his good quote, the video that they play on YouTube is just like, that's fire, man. And every time that I kind of get my legs taken out from under me, I'll kick that on, and it's 2 minutes of like, you know what, you didn't get that job, good. You didn't get that opportunity, good. Go back and work harder, because if you'd gone in there this time, you wouldn't have been as prepared. So prepare better, learn more, do this. So those two books as a standout. And then also been reading a lot of Neil Gaiman, the American Gods, the Norse mythology and things like that. Those are just kind of fun, leisurely books.
Yeah.
But Mark Manson, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. I've been trying to read a book a week, man, and just plow through some really good information. And it's not just these like hype books that make you feel good, make you feel like you can conquer the world. Sometimes you're like, okay, I'm on the right track, and that's all you need from that book, is to know that you're doing the right things.
Yeah.
It's just going to take some more time. And that's one thing I've learned over and over and over again is when you force it is when it seems to get the hardest. It's better to just do your best and go with the flow and see where the flow takes you, you know, around the parameters of you working hard.
Favorite MCs?
Oh, man. Black Thought.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Dude, like, we were talking about that.
I think he just became number one of all time with that.
Dude, I mean, we were talking about that, and, you know, I'd listen to it. I'd kind of casually watch the video, and then the other night I was just laying there, and I had the lights turned low, put that on, and I was kind of in that relaxed, meditative mindset, dude, and it's 11 minutes of just rage. I mean, he's just going, and it was so good because going back to language, he wasn't filling it with filler. Mm-hmm. It was real talk, and him just, that was one of the best things.
And talk about breath work. People don't know how hard that is.
Dude,
to spit like that.
I karaoke'd the Humpty Dance, and I was dying.
Yeah.
You know? And but yeah, for 11 minutes to keep that cadence, to keep that flow, and to really be on it was good. And I'll tell you another guy that I like out of Canada is Belly.
Okay.
He's not that well known. I mean, and some of his stuff that he's put out's is hit or miss. He did some stuff at the weekend. But he's got a couple freestyles that'll blow your mind. And then I'll tell you just one more guy that I really have enjoyed his growth is MGK. You know, he was a guy that was just straight rap all the time, but he picked up a guitar, learned to play that. Yeah, he's doing a lot more mellow stuff. But then he was on Tim Westwood in England, and he was like, everybody thinks I've gone soft. And then he just ripped for 5 minutes.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah,
wow.
He was good, but of course Eminem. Yeah. You know, Q-Tip. I was listening to Q-Tip the other day. So I love rap, and we were talking about Nas. Yeah. For guys that really like and respect rap, Nas has got to be one of the top 5, easily top 5. Yeah. But he's not one of those guys that everybody's got on a playlist. And if you're not listening to Nas, do it. Just start an album and listen to the whole thing because it's so good. And it was ahead of its time, really. Like,
oh, definitely.
I think I think Puff and Pac maybe had some better beats at times, but the words, Nas killed them both. I mean, that's just me. But
yeah, to this day, if I feel like the West Coast is making me a little softer, I'll throw on New York State of Mind.
Exactly.
Just getting that grind mode.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So, Brandon, where can people find out more about you, all you got going on? And you offer coaching, one-on-one coaching, if anyone wants that.
Yep. I do some in-person stuff. Most of my stuff is online. You can go to brandonlilly.net. We're getting ready to do a total revamp of that because it was all based around just the powerlifting stuff. So I'm trying to get some articles wrapped up that I've been working on for a while to kind of show you a newer version of myself, give a clear look at who I am now, and we got some cool stuff coming out on there. My Instagram is Brandon Lilly 3. It's happening every single day. My stories are full. I try to share as much of myself as openly and as honestly as I can, so you can see that while sometimes it looks cool, there's a lot of work and a lot of behind the scenes stuff that is just real life, and I think that's a good connection point for a lot of people. And Instagram has been really good to me in connecting with other lifters and other people trying to get better. YouTube is Brandon Lilly 3, and then Twitter is lily.brandon.3. So that's pretty much it. I lurk on Facebook, but it just doesn't seem to have the connection point. I think the algorithms have gotten kind of crazy over there, and I'm not playing the game. I just want to put information out there and connect with people. And I try not to get too political anymore. I try to just respect that everybody's got their own view, and as long as we can communicate about it and talk about it, we can both learn and grow. So my Instagram is pretty much a positive place anymore. It's I don't tolerate people coming on there and knocking other people or knocking ideas. If you want to discuss things, more power to you. We'll talk all day. But I'm pretty proud of my Instagram compared to where it was.
Yeah,
it's changed a lot.
Yeah, guys, make sure you share this episode if you know anyone who will benefit from it. Make sure you follow Brandon. Brandon, honestly, this was such a pleasure. I'm so glad we got to connect. Glad we got to do this. It was awesome. I'm sure we'll do another one in the future.
Sure.
And guys, as always, thanks for listening, and we will talk to you next time.